And welcome back to Maritime Athletic Profiles, continuing coverage of the 2025 U19 Senior Atlantic Rugby Championships. My name is Dan Hobson. Delighted once again to have Matt Melanson along for the call here. We got Team Nova Scotia taking on Team Alberta. So let's get your opening thoughts here on this one before we kick it off on a Friday night from Windsor.
Just excited to see what Alberta have brought. Their first time here at this competition. Excited to get another team in to give us some more fixtures and see some more of the talent from across the country. So excited to see what they bring.
The Team Alberta was formed through a regional competition between two Alberta sides, the Edmonton Gold representing the north and the Calgary Mavericks representing the south. From that competition, they were brought together, selected athletes and coaches for both regions to build a unified provincial team, something that hasn't happened since pre-COVID. So,
yeah, I know they were looking for fixtures, and I think just some coaches networking and found out that this competition was in need of a team, and Alberta was there to fill the slot. So, yeah, happy it worked out that way.
And some bright unis to boot there. They love the color scheme.
Yeah, some stylish Wolf T-shirts they had for their warm-up T-shirts.
Well, definitely you can tell by the skies right now. It's almost like a difference between day and night here. We had sunny skies and the temperatures feeling like 32. It is clouded over. There is the possibility of some showers and thunder showers possible here. And it's dark skies, but so far dry, which is how we'd like to keep it, and that's how we'd like to see it.
Yeah, we've got Michael Paris getting checked on. See, just walking it off. Oh, there you go, running back to the huddle. Always happy to see healthy Michael Paris. He's having a fantastic club season so far this summer.
So we're just into the opening seconds, and
nice touch there from Alberta.
As along that far sideline. Swung a little bit more towards the inside. But once again, just pink and black jerseys right away. As McPhee rumbled and bumbled to get a few feet there for Team Nova Scotia. Back they come here along the near side on a nice little tackle by the collar, you could per se. And the pass there a little bit too far there for Culligan. More was done out of emergency than anything, so it's into touch.
Yeah, Nova Scotia played through the phases. They got on the front foot there. Maggie McPhee got them on the front foot, and Sarah Gunn kind of won a little confrontation, so they were looking to play a little expansive after that.
Referee is Laura Flatterer, former Katie Axewoman.
Yeah, I think if duty called and Laura needed to put a playing jersey on, she'd still do quite a job.
Now, she's done a great transition from player to official because she's been pretty much the top official when it comes to the high school girls scene in the province.
Yeah, there's a sort of scene of former high-level U Sport players who have taken to officiating very well, and we're happy to have all of them.
Nova Scotia once again with the ball there on the far sideline. And a steal there by Alberta. And a whistle there from Laura Flatterer. It was kind of a funny conversation I had with Laura beforehand there, Matt, because I was saying, yeah, I remember calling your games when you were at Acadia. And she says, that was a long time ago. It was not even quite 5 years.
She's, the 26, 27-year-olds getting nostalgic for the good old days.
Yeah. This feels like yesterday, really, was down at Acadia calling her game, so.
Yeah.
So a scrum here in the early going.
Yeah. Good stability there, a little bit of a wheel, but Nova Scotia able to retain possession, get a platform.
Ball was a tap and go by Nova Scotia out of penalty, and there they go. Tried to go up the gut, and some good tackling there by Alberta.
Yeah, that's some great great fast thinking by Aquima. Gets 20, 30 meters. It's a great result from a penalty.
Come on. Pushing a little bit of a pile there for Team Nova Scotia. Passing quickly like a hot potato. Maybe possible borderline shoulder tackle as Dodge has it. Dodge rumbling, bumbling, taking some bodies with her in the process. A swing over there by Gunn.
Some strong clear-outs for Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia did very well. They're quickly going. They like to go up tempo. We saw that on the last time they had a penalty. Culligan outside.
Very hard to bring down without a little bit of help.
Brought down there by Blake there from Team Alberta. McPhee. Nova Scotia with some good quick passes. McPhee once again. Wells into the middle, past the 22. Good possession here by Team Nova Scotia. Parker. They get to the outside and they're getting right close to the try line here is Team Nova Scotia. McPhee again. Gets a little bit of a stiff arm here on the Alberta player. Coggle runs into a wall of pink and black. Ball bounces around for Dodge. Up ball there for Childs.
See if it'll sit up for playing advantage. That's why they were a little more loose with the ball, just trying whatever they could, knowing they're going to come back and have a very advantageous penalty position here.
But you got to, as a coach or somebody involved in the sport, love the quick passing. It's just, and it's like right on the mark. So you got to like Nova Scotia's passing here early going here, Matt.
Yeah, when we talk about passing on time and on schedule, and getting people the ball where they can do something with it, when it moves and it's fluid, it's hard to beat.
Alberta with a good first boost, but Nova Scotia with the ball. Most importantly, back to the outside, pass on the ground, and right over here to Culligan. Culligan, can she get it in and down?
Referees are going to have a little chat about it.
And it's been awarded. Well, we kind of gave it a little bit of the jigs. We were seeing how good the passing was, but it was a really tough pass there before they got in for the try. It had to be scooped up off the ground. As we see, this was on the replay, and then the pass out to Culligan there from Paris. Paris to Culligan and in. So, I mean, that's good hands there by Paris to come up with that. Not the easiest of passes, right below her knees. So
should be a good angle of what Kat Culligan had to do. Oh, Justin's in our way, but was happy with the grounding. Kat Culligan, sort of a renowned athlete in Nova Scotia. Very powerful ability to always kind of bump people off and hand people off.
And the conversion, as you might have heard some of our mics pick up, the wind was starting to pick up as it is very dark, very cloudy. So we hope that we could, that basically you can play in any weather except for lightning, of course. So hopefully that doesn't come to fruition. But if it does rain, we'll still be able to get this one in. But good start for Team Nova Scotia there, Matty.
Yeah, pretty methodical. They're moving through their structures. They're finding breaks and winning their one-on-one matchups, playing with momentum. It's good stuff.
Flores with the restart here for Alberta. Akpin had it.
Bit of a counter ruck, but not enough to turn over possession. So now Alberta's settled in defense.
Hackpin sort of like a little bit of a dog walk to get out of that pile there for Team Nova Scotia. Got a little bit of a chuckle from the crowd here at King's Edgehill in Windsor. Nova Scotia with the ball to the outside. Dodge met immediately as soon as she got the ball. So Nova Scotia here showing a little bit of strong ball possession, but being pushed back there by Team Alberta. Nova Scotia's just happy to kick it upfield. Caught there
taken. Let's see how the
by
kick
Flores.
Kick back.
Sent it right back to where it originally was, practically.
Yeah, we'll see what Remy can do.
Dodges a few tackles and gets it into the middle of the pitch. Nova Scotia's got maybe a little bit if they got a one-on-one on the outside. A tackle there by Okiki, number 8 there for Alberta. The wind started to go across the pitch here, so.
Oh, I think we just got some lightning.
And we were talking about Nova Scotia with the good passes, and sometimes it's been sort of like a good concentration by the players to come up with it, because some of the passes has been a little bit too low for them, but they've managed to work with what they got.
Yeah, they're happy to.
Alberta called for the penalty, and just like that, the tap and go, and off they go.
Yeah.
Team Nova Scotia.
Some great territory gained there.
McPhee. Oh, ball down on the ground. Alberta gets possession. Big time they needed that one because it looked like momentum and the play was heavily carried by Team Nova Scotia, especially after getting that early try.
Yeah, just a big shot from Alberta there, sort of stiffened up the Nova Scotia attack, and the ball spilled forward. So
9.5 gone here in the opening first half. So you've had a chance to see some of the sizes here of the players on the field. So size advantage, who do you favor here, Alberta or Nova Scotia?
It's sometimes hard to tell from up here. The first few scrums that have gone by, Alberta have given a kind of an early shove, but Nova Scotia's been able to withstand it. So, a few big hits so far from the Alberta in defense, but the scrum not really moving back one way or the other, just sometimes a little bit of a spin.
Flores had difficulty with that for Team Alberta. Turnover there, Nova Scotia has it near the 22. His whistle stops play near the 22. McPhee and Team Nova Scotia getting ready for the scrum against Blake and Alberta. Here approaching the 11th minute. Ionides out of Alberta will Alberta not getting much going here. If things start to get a physical there, big tackle away from the ball. Alberta slowly but carefully getting up the field.
As we see in some of the other games, the pick and go, really people starting to use it as a powerful weapon, always gets you a little bit of front foot if you find the right time for it.
Flores. So we saw a streak of lightning here, so that is something that I think is definitely going to be something that could be a little bit of a factor here. Could be in the area, but hopefully it will push aside.
Yeah, we'll see if we've got some tournament staff doing the counting.
Yeah. A big rumble. Every time whistle down on the field, so it's looked like it that they have sort of put the halt here to this one. Looks like they're going to, as the main official has basically said, let's stop play. With seeing that. So they are basically having a little bit of a lightning delay here at the championships.
So I'm going to go and concur, but for now the game has stopped.
Waiting for the clouds to pass. So it's just about approaching the 13-minute mark, and I guess what question really is, what does this have to do with, like, in terms of the teams? You're all warmed up, you're getting ready to play, and then all of a sudden you get the notification that, well, you can't play because of lightning in the area. What's it do as a player?
It's happened. You just got, safety first. So players are going to leave the field. They'll get a warning. They'll start a timer for in between strikes when it's sufficient that the lightning's passed, and then the players will get a kind of 10-minute re-warm up period. We won't throw them right back into the game without a second chance to warm up.
All right, so we will be back with more coverage here from Windsor once we have it back underway. So stay tuned. This is the U19 Senior Atlantic Rugby Championships here on Maritime Athletic Profiles. All right, folks. Thanks for your patience. We're back here at King's Edgehill School in Windsor, Nova Scotia for the 2025 U19 Senior Atlantic Rugby Championships here on Maritime Athletic Profiles. Dan Hobson, Matt Malotson. Matt, you shared a moment with people that I think you want to share with the folks online that you say, well, you know, you're welcome. I made the choice of having it here on a turf field as opposed to a grass field. So pat on the back for that there.
Yeah, I'll take all the kudos to keep us on
There you
schedule
go.
and with lights. So yeah, the day will continue with a slight delay. Back in off the penalty here. Celtics kick to the corner. Yeah, now we'll have to see. The rain is still coming down pretty hard. See how they adapt to these conditions.
It definitely was a very change of conditions, sunshine and warm, and now we've got wet field, wet ball, and it was very heavy rain, about maybe 25 millimeters coming down in about an hour, but I don't think we've reached that mark as they had a thunderstorm watch in the area of Kings and Hants County, so it's passed, so that's why we're allowed to play. And speaking of play continuing here. Penalty to Alberta, and Nova Scotia trying to capitalize here in the 14th minute, near the halfway point of this first half.
They've elected for the scrum here, so obviously feeling strong, feeling stable.
You know, you're pretty confident when you have elected to do this, so.
Yeah, strong and steady, able to play with it at the back here.
Not much give either way, but then Nova Scotia outside. Paris brought down. One of the Alberta defenders actually tripped over her own teammate's feet. Akpin going back for Nova Scotia instead of forward. Come on. Kugel trying to push away. Back out. Parker. And ball lost by Nova Scotia, and this is where the wet ball gets to be a little bit of a factor here. A wet surface, now all of a sudden the handling of the ball becomes a little bit harder.
Yeah. Sometimes the game ends up being a bit more direct in the rain. People are even less confident of their own footing, so everything just gets a little more direct, and it does just become a bit of a hold on to the ball competition.
Scrub
Nova Scotia
underway.
seems to have settled into the ability to exert some pressure there.
Alberta with the turnover right there. Akpin pick it up. The benefactor. Nova Scotia pressing again. Right into the middle. Taking a couple of Alberta tacklers, Team Nova Scotia. Got numbers to the outside. Culligan.
Oh, nice flat ball.
Good pass, and they had the numbers to the outside, and another try for Team Nova Scotia.
A well-timed run by Remy to be able to get that ball flat, get in behind the defense.
Remy Myers has made it 10-0 for the meantime. Well, the break didn't really phase Nova Scotia. They were going down the field, pressing, and then the lightning came, and then they came back on and quickly struck here as we see Remy Myers there with the try down that far sideline.
Yeah, the scrum seems to be ironed out a few of the kinks. They were just sort of spinning in place, a little back and forth for the first few, but they seem to have settled in, sorted out, and now they're exerting lots of pressure as well.
Not the easiest of conversions here for Nova Scotia, pretty much.
Yeah, they've left poor Gunner with two sideline converts.
Yeah, both times, so it's
hurting the kicking percentage.
And short of the mark, so it stays 10-0. So you as a player, you've probably had like weather delays, lightning delays, what really goes on? Like you come out, you play 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden you're told to go back. Take us through what goes on in a dressing room, what goes on and what you talk about, and as you get ready to come back and play.
Yeah, I think you just you don't know how long they're going to be is the thing. So I think you've got to go in and shut down and relax, and then take your time to amp back up when they give you the warning that you're going back on, and not try to grip the stick too tight through 3 or 4 lightning resets.
Well, the weather has made it a little bit cooler in terms of the humidity, down to 22 degrees now. But it definitely feels less humid than it actually did.
Yeah, and that is also another benefit of the delay. Sometimes they take the worst of the weather with them, and you end up with a decent day of rugby once it blows through.
BA, who we have had a chance to meet just before the start of this game, well known in the community back in Alberta. Very nice lady for sure. And Nova Scotia called for the penalty and injury here to Alberta, and she's pounding on the turf here at Kings Edge Hill, so you know that it's serious when they're doing that. And take a look at Team Nova Scotia. The substitutes looking on. And applause here shown to the Alberta player. So ready for the restart, and back we go, underway here. Alberta trying to get, as we see some of the players there playing up to the camera along the far sideline. The play's back underway, and Alberta looking to try to strike quickly here, trailing by 10.
It's a big shot by Brendan Camo and up into a counter ruck. Britton goes and
steal by Akpin for Nova Scotia. To the outside, ball on the turf, but Akpin picks it up, showing some good hands. Kugel also involved in that for Team Nova Scotia. They bring it back up the middle. Time of possession definitely in favor of Nova Scotia. And once again, we saw those quick passes earlier in the game before the weather delay, and they've continuing once again. As I said, that ball's sort of probably like a wet bar of soap in the bathtub trying to handle. Nova Scotia going back here.
Some nice timing on the passes by Nova Scotia. So they're giving them just at the right time. Ooh, not always, but
that's the announcer's jinx. Don't worry, Paris. Yeah. I have been known to be called the announcer's jinx, so even when it comes out of your mouth, it will still be me that will get the blame for it. So you've got to get out of jail free card.
Yeah,
it'll be Hobson all the time. So 21 and a half minutes gone. Another scrum set. Near the 10-meter mark.
A little bit of a push from Alberta there, but looks like the Celtics are going to weather and get out at the back. But nope, turned over.
Alberta trying to capitalize. Casey Munn stopped. Larissa Shue for Team Alberta, and once again runs into a big blue wall. That ball for Kochuk. Not the easiest. And the whistle stops play. This is we were talking earlier in some of our games how there wasn't that many scrums, and in our first game we did with the two Nova Scotia teams, there's been a lot so far in this first half.
Yeah, the unfortunate consequence of a rain-soaked half hour, but sun seems to be peeking out. May help dry things up a little bit. Alberta was able to exert a little bit of pressure and turn over that last scrum. Celtics have settled in here.
Another win for Nova Scotia on that one. The kick to the outside, but good tackle there by Kochak there for Alberta. Alberta up there, a little bit too aggressive.
In the side of that breakdown, and Sophie Parker's already tapped and gone.
Yep, got quick transition there for Parker near the midfield stripe.
But outran the support and got turned over immediately.
And Alberta happy to slow the pace down here as we're coming into the 24th minute. Look at the Alberta bench. So a combination of Calgary and Edmonton players for maybe those who've just tuned in to the broadcast. Send it down to Laura Flatterer, who will give us some instructions and take us down and give us some sights and sounds here in the championship. Play back along that far sideline now for Alberta, looking to strike here with about 5 to go and change in this first half. A good rush up the field for them. Not the easiest of passes to handle that time.
Well, Alberta's done well to retain that, though.
Oh, that was a hard tackle. I definitely might have hit the turf. It's slow to get up. It was the Alberta player, but she's back up.
Brooke Reed's done a fantastic job to come away with that turnover.
They're back to the outside. A little stiff for him to get away, but had one person to beat it, couldn't. But tried to run over like a freight train, unsuccessful. But Nova Scotia still had possession momentarily. Said earlier about the with the heat and the humidity, high temperatures, that defending is hard. So, as you said, weather can be almost like a reset for sure. It's not as humid, but still very important not to get into like a game where you're playing defense a lot.
Too much defense.
Too much defense.
Oh, it's a beautiful line out, placed right on the money, well timed. A well executed strike move here. Gets Emily
passes
Dodge.
Too. Have something going near the 22 here for Team Nova Scotia. Already up by 10, looking for more. They'll tap and chase it down and into touch.
We've talked about those a few times, though. Those nice little kicks in behind, put a lot of pressure on the defense. You know, you're getting a line out inside the 22. You get to pressure this line out. That gives you an opportunity to win the ball back. In all likelihood, they're going to kick it back to you. That gives you a good counter-attacking platform. I think those are great outcomes from those kicks.
Shoe to bring it in here on this line out. And they successfully get it.
tackles, many carries.
Alberta had it momentarily. Now they do have it back. Danny Cox. BA. So we're coming up to about a minute and a half and change left here in this first half. Nova Scotia up 10. Alberta trying to strike here before the end.
A big shot had to.
Alberta going back instead of up the field. Back in the middle. They might have something brewing there, or pushes over the Nova Scotia player was Casey Munn.
Brenton Camo is laying some heavy shots so far this game.
Flores.
Nova Scotia will be
And
happy.
Alberta happy just to kick it down and take a page out of the Nova Scotia playbook. Redshaw. Oh, pasted there by Kate Knight of Alberta. Got a crowd reaction, loose ball. And Alberta just kick it out into touch. That was an exciting sequence, Matt.
Yeah, it was a heads-up play by Mandy Wells, and the kick just stayed right in that danger zone.
Oh, watch this hit. Boom. Redshaw goes down hard.
Yeah, Redshaw and Culligan, a little miscommunication on where each other were going to be, and no option for Ailish. Done well to hold on to the ball.
Come on, line out. Tapped enough there by Alberta. And another into touches. They got the play going along the sideline there. So as you see, we're into extra time. And what a difference. It's like we were coming back and it was rain. The rain has now stopped, and that probably will be a jinx that will actually start raining again. Nova Scotia get it on the line out and push it up the pitch.
Maul. Win the line out at the back. Usually get a good chance to go forward here. Sort out some players and driving towards the goalposts.
Pushing the piles, Team Nova Scotia. Just pushed Alberta back probably about a good 10 meters in the process.
Now we're going to see if the ball is going to be playable. No, it's turned over in that maul.
And whistle stops play. And Laura Flatterer says, that's enough, ladies. We're going to send it to the dressing room for halftime in a match that Nova Scotia's had a really good ball possession, time of possession in favor of them for sure after the opening 30, and of course had the weather delay. So your thoughts on what you seen after the opening 30 minutes?
Yeah, I think both teams will be happy with that. I think it's very physical. I think the defenses are both, Nova Scotia will be happy to keep the shutout going, but I think both teams have lots to take from that. Some of that.
Well, you can feel free to take a look at the highlights from the first half. We're going to step aside for a little bit of a break so you can see what you missed and come back here for the second half coverage here of the 2025 U19 Senior Atlantic Rugby Championships here on Maritime Athletic Profiles. All right. I'm honored to be having Willow BA here with me here. She won the 2024 Rugby 15's U Sport Community Service Award. So congratulations on that. Tell us all about what gets you nominated for that.
I do some different type of work around in my community. I volunteer with a wheelchair rugby team and an adaptive physical activity program for kids. I also do some coaching for the Junior Dinos program at the University of Calgary, and I started a peer support group for injured varsity athletes at my university. After tearing my ACL twice, I saw the need for a group like that.
All right, so it sounds like you got a busy schedule. Tell us all about like what basically, I imagine you're attending university or having like a post-secondary career. Tell us all about it. Let's get to know more about you.
Oh, sure. I just graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology, and I'll be going back to school in September to become a teacher.
All right, so what's your favorite subject that you want to teach when you graduate after to be a teacher?
Well, I want to be an elementary school teacher, so I'll be teaching a little bit of everything, but I think my favorite subject would probably be gym. I think it's really great to get to teach kids about all sorts of different sports and give them a lifelong love of activity.
Oh, so you're going to take the sort of maybe a little bit of the easy way out and being phys ed rather than be like an English teacher trying to hold, primary grade ones and grade twos, try to get them to stay in their seats. That'd be a difficult task, but phys ed, they're running, no big deal, right?
Well, that's the hope. Hopefully kids love being active.
Now, you were telling me off camera you've won more than just this award that we're talking about. Tell us about the others.
I won the same award for Can West, and then I also was given the Senate Student Athlete Community Service Award from the University of Calgary this year as well, all for the same activities that I got the U Sports Award for.
Yeah, so how'd you get into the sport of rugby?
Both my parents played, so I've been playing since I was 5. It just was natural for me. I wanted to be just like my mom and dad.
Yeah, so tell us, how far do you want to go in the sport, really?
I'd like to play the highest level of rugby I can for as long as I can.
All right, well, thank you for this time and best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much.
That's Willow B.A. She is a member of Team Alberta here at the 2025 U19 Senior Atlantic Rugby Championships here on Maritime Athletic Profiles. And welcome back, and that was a great interview that I had with BA there from Alberta. And of course, we talked about her award-winning 2024 Rugby 15's Youth Sports Community Service Award, and she was also named to the 2024 Rugby 15's Canada West All-Star Team. So she took some time to speak to us as we welcome you back here to King's Edge Hill School in beautiful Windsor, Nova Scotia. It's the 2025 U19 Senior Atlantic Rugby Championships here at Maritime Athletic Profiles. Alongside Matt Malutza, my name's Dan Hobson, and the rest of the Maritime Athletic Profiles crew. Delighted to be here as we are back underway.
And that kick's gone out, but it's just gone 10, so we'll start off this half proper with a line out. No subs made for Nova Scotia at halftime, but it does look like all the substitutes are getting warm and getting loose, so we may see some of those start to come in.
Yeah, just get over that 10-meter line, so. Been sort of like a mixed bag of weather here for the teams. They came out here, were warming up in the sun. The sun then gave way to rain and lightning, had weather delays, and then it has definitely cooled things off here in Windsor here tonight. So very good playing conditions, and the turf is drying pretty good, so may make passing a little bit easier as we are back underway here in this second half. Just a minute gone. Ball on that far sideline. Alberta trying to swing it out. That's Evie Blake. That's some tough yardage there for Alberta. They swing back into the middle.
Not much territory made off this so far, but it seems like they found a little soft shoulder here.
Ooh, Might have got away if it brought down. Definitely could have been called for a high tackle, but it was just bounced off there by the Alberta player along that far sideline as they bring it back into the middle once again.
Great tackle
Man.
by Aquima.
And a steal there by Nova Scotia with an open field tackle there by Kochuk. Some room here for Myers. Myers went to cut in and
So an Alberta
lost it.
hand got on that, broke it up.
Flatterer went to her officiating side person to verify.
Assistant referee.
Assistant referee, yes. A long day, the words are starting to stick.
Yeah, had to decipher kind of which hands went off there. An Alberta player obviously would have been able to knock that towards their own goal line. Wouldn't have been a knock on. And so it was, decision was a Nova Scotia hand was in there somewhere.
Nova Scotia has been doing well on this side of the ball, but it's Alberta that comes up and gets possession of it. Blake.
It's a nice strike move. Gets some freedom down the wing.
Yeah, getting a little bit of a good and the best run down the field here for Alberta. Mussolini Flynn. First touch, but it was a big one there. She brought it back up the midfield where they were down in the deep end of their side of the pitch. Keely Mussolini Flynn, number 14 for Alberta. There it is.
Not too many steadier tacklers at the fullback than Ailish Redshaw. She's happy to track across the field and cover tackles.
Yeah, just had one person to beat. There was Mussolini Flynn and Redshaw with the tackle. Scrum just near the midfield stripe. As the sun starts to come back, so it may dry things quicker, but it also may heat things up here from Kings Edge Hill in Windsor. And booted down the field there by Alberta. Redshaw.
Culligan, yeah, does a
And
bobble.
Culligan there. It came up shy. Redshaw looking to be the person back there for Nova Scotia. Boy, that was the arm strike there of Sophie Parker. Was practically had her hand held as she was going down the field, was taking the Alberta player with her.
Sophie
Goes
Parker
to show you the streak she had.
Wonderfully dynamic player.
Flores runs right into Emily Dodge as the sun comes out in the rain. So it's like,
If you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
oh yeah, well exactly here. Started off sunny, then went rain, and then it was like clouds, and everything was fine. And now the downpours are coming again, and the sun's coming out. So it's rainbow weather. And as the rain starts to come in, some of the fans or some of the people watching are looking for drier territory.
Some very aggressive defense these last few minutes from Alberta.
Chichetto, the coach of the Kings Edge Hill Highlanders girls team. Runners up once again in the SSNS Western region. In the past 2 years ago, they won the championship. Back out, Remy Myers. Brought down along that near sideline by Ionides of Alberta.
Remy's finding herself with lots of involvements today, lots of the ball getting out to the wings. Slippery day, but she's come away taking her try well, and she's made lots of ground on many of her carries.
Ionides out of Edmonton, Alberta, plays for the Nor'Wester AA team. Back out west. So as soon as the ball starts to get a little bit dry, gets wet just like that.
Yeah, just like that.
The changing weather conditions this match has seen between Alberta and Nova Scotia. One
And
weather delay in the books.
And the scrum ascendancy, a penalty given away for Nova Scotia for not driving straight, but sort of back and forth as to which team has the upper hand in the scrum. We like to see that. Good tactical battle there.
And can't get it out as it's
Mandy Wells
picked off
made that
by
catch.
Wells, yes.
But then lost right away. It's a hard ball to hang on to.
Godfrey. Danny Cox push it up for Alberta. Casey Mann and Carrion Parker. Hard to get down all the way. It's got like a few extra meters here for Team Alberta. It has been Cox. Nothing going there as they were trying to go up to gut, and it was just a big blue wall there for Alberta. Alberta pressing here, 10-0, looking to try to cut this margin in half.
Some strong goal line defense here from Nova Scotia. The heights are nice and low, able to stop the Alberta players.
And Alberta getting close to that try
Once
line.
the momentum starts, it is hard to stop.
And they have been rewarded with the try. Maybe not as kept it maybe low, a little bit of a ground game per se to get that try, but they just were just inching, almost doing like the little trade, I think I can, and they have, and they've managed to cut it to deficit in half on this try.
Yeah, I mean, right around the 22, they're starting to get some momentum, and then about 10 out, the momentum stalled, and then they picked it back up again. Once they can win that shoulder height battle and get moving forward again, then they're going to tend to stay in motion, as I say.
And the two conversion attempts for Team Nova Scotia have been well out, so this is definitely within range here for Alberta. Well over age, but definitely off the mark, so it stays at 10-5 as we're coming up to the 40th minute. Would you say it was very important here for Nova Scotia just to get a little bit of a bounce back here, like just to have maybe a good quick strike?
Yeah, I think that any sort of score here would push you back into a more comfortable cushion. So, love to just get their hands back on the ball kind of as quick as possible and not have to settle into another big long stint of defending.
That was definitely some really good hands there for Jocelyn Bugelsack. Not the easiest, try to handle a football in this wet weather and managed to get it up there for a little bit for Alberta. Back they come. On to the outside. Shoe has it. The swing out. Hofstad, who's involved in a communications role with this team Alberta, of Rugby Alberta, so. Godfrey. And there's Bugelsack again.
See, Alberta happy to string faces together. Sometimes they're going backwards, sometimes they're going forward.
And then Alberta trying to go right through two Nova Scotia defenders. Alcock. Ball on the ground, recovered there by Nova Scotia. Childs in the middle again. Cabo, as you said, has been an impressive game so far here for Team Nova Scotia.
That's a nice
Yep.
ball.
Yeah. Off to the races, Paris. Shy of the try line along that corner. Nova Scotia trying to cut it into the middle with Childs.
Let's see if they can recycle here.
Back to the outside. And down for Paris for the try for Nova Scotia.
That was a lovely play from Kenzie Chiquetto and Mike Al have played together plenty. Just a nice last-second pop to free her up.
And just like the other two tries they've had, it's been on that far sideline for the conversion here for Nova Scotia. So as we take a look at the replay here of the try, they had the numbers to the outside, and that was almost pretty easy walk in there for Paris. Sarah Gunn. Hard angle. And
yeah, strictly sideline conversions for Gunner today.
Yeah.
Just giving it a good smack, but off the bar.
So remains 15-5 as we're into the 43rd minute. So look at Gunn. So just as I said, it was like you want to see a quick strike for them once Alberta got on the board, and they basically gave what Nova Scotia viewers were looking for as a quick strike to get back, to make it a double-digit lead.
Yeah, Alberta strung together a lot of possession there, but weren't able to really get out of their own end, and Nova Scotia capitalized on the turnover.
Reset. Kenzie Chiquetto. Bugle stack looking for the loose ball there for Alberta. It's going to be Nova Scotia. They go right up the gut, almost split the D of Alberta.
Yeah, and keeping their foot in the gas there as they get some go forward. Maggie McPhee, yeah.
Andy Wells back. Gunn.
See if that's going to hit the ground.
Nice little spin move by Ioannidis. Getting near the 22. Ioannidis on a good rush from her. Back in the middle. Casey Mann. A stop there by Emily Dodge. Back into the middle they go. Right into a blue wall, and Akpin trying to push the Alberta defender back. Swing it out into the middle, and Alberta's able to take a couple of Nova Scotia tacklers in the process. Looking for the ball was Alcock. She was hoping it was coming. The pass didn't come there from Alberta. A little bit of a fumble there by Hustad. Hustad, pardon me. Substitutions coming in as Lauren Deal will check in.
Yeah, Lauren Deal, a little undersized as a prop, but just so technically proficient. Let's see if she can come in here as a prop. You love to come in on a scrum. You feel fresh. Everybody else has been playing for 45 minutes. You're as fresh as you're going to be to go do your favorite thing as a prop.
Also checking in was Jody Ver from Alberta. She's been a long-standing contributor to rugby in Alberta. Will be attending the Canadian Classics 30th anniversary tournament, an event that honors and showcases the legacy of women's rugby in Canada. Wearing number 20. Paris has got a try here in this one for Nova Scotia with the ball.
Yeah, Lauren Deal doing the proper thing there, coming in fresh. Get yourself the first few carries.
And Wells was hoping to boot it downfield before the whistle. But the whistle stops play. As rain once again gets a little bit heavier.
LP's got that knocked on at the back of that ruck.
Maya Fouché and crew looking on. As we get eavesdrop on this scrum. Play back underway, and
Kenzie Chicato over that ball in a good strong position, supporting her own weight, so it's a quick easy turnover decision.
It's a Nova Scotia ball, and into touch
Nice,
for the
nice
lineup.
shot from considering smack in the middle of the field to get out from, inside your 22 to in between the 10 and a half.
Nova Scotia getting organized here. Camo will bring this in. And a tip back to Mandy Wells. Dodge. Paris brought down the middle of the pitch.
See if anybody can just settle in there.
Wells with the toss. Once again, Mandy Wells all over this possession here for Team Nova Scotia. Deal, chest in. Gets her first touch of the game. Akpin. Back out. McPhee. Right into the heads of Rodriguez. Rodriguez. Inside the 22 for Alberta as they're trying to strike. This is Bester.
That was a great job to stop the momentum there. It was a good tackle by Emily Dodge, and then whoever combined in on that double tackle really stopped the momentum.
Ball low there for Bugle sack. Results in the knock on. So just over 10 to go and change. Very vocal Alberta bench looking on. Take you down field level once again.
Alberta
And
with
just
a bit
like
of pressure, but Nova Scotia was able to get it away.
Parker. Oh. Call again. Try to be chased down. It is. It was hoping for a good run along that sideline, and Culligan has had a pretty good game as well.
Perfect angel. He was never made a mistake in her life. She is the greatest living human. Whatever she decided was correct.
Sorry, everybody at home. We have to handle something over here.
So 9 and change to go. Nova Scotia up by 10. The score not really in telling the story of how they've really had more ball possession and have really had the dominant play versus Alberta here in this one, you'd have to say, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, to only be up 10, exclusively the sideline converts certainly would have helped put some more distance in, and it would have felt a little bit better. But And then just the bit of the sloppy conditions. And Alberta's put together good strong stretches of play. They've maintained possession and controlled the ball. So, I would say it's a fairly accurate representation.
Another scrub to come here. Is the Nova Scotia happy to see this clock sort of tick down, up by 10. Once again, sights and sounds here from the championships.
Well held by Emily Dodge. Nice little pop-off play there. See how quickly they can recycle.
Sort of like a cartwheel. Redshaw outside. Myers.
Remy's a very strong player. Does well to stay in.
Parker. Pounced on there by Alberta. At the throwback, of course, there was Muir. My apologies on that. Now, physical contest there between a couple of players, and up comes Alberta with the ball.
Likely just shaping to kick Alberta, getting themselves situated exactly as they'd like in a little bit of territory, and there comes the
and
kick.
Booted down the field, and Renshaw gets another chance here. Renshaw gets to the outside, beats a couple of would-be tacklers in the process. Brought down, swing over there by Wells. Loose ball picked up by Nova Scotia. McPhee quickly over to Emily Dodge in the middle. Dodge tried to dodge a few tacklers, takes a few Alberta players with her in the process. 6 minutes and change to go. Cabo's had a very good game, as well as Redshaw. Alcock trying to bring down the Nova Scotia player. Along that far sideline. Near sideline, my apologies. Swing it out. Nobody in particular, so loose ball up for grabs. Gunn kicks it. In the meantime, we have a injured Nova Scotia player down. But quickly back up. And Alberta's getting a chance to get a water break, as well as Team Nova Scotia to look at the Nova Scotia bench.
That's Clara Jackson's coming in. I think there's been a jersey swap to get a better fit, but Clara Jackson subbing in. Bringing off Maggie McPhee. I think that'll be Brenton Camo goes to prop, and Clara slots in at hooker.
Want to send a shout out to our camera crew here at Maritime Athletic Profiles for this. Has definitely been a hard game to work with the conditions, keeping everything dry and shooting cameras. So we want to thank them for their hard work here and getting this match in, because they have had to deal with everything but snow practically.
Yeah.
As the sun comes out once again. Wells has had a pretty good game outside Myers. Hackpin, the pass was a little bit behind her in the process. Godry looking for the loose ball there for Alberta as whistle stops play. A quick tap and go here by Alberta. Oh, what a hit.
The heavy hit from Sophie
Hoofstad.
Parker.
Yeah, Hoofstad. She'll be feeling that in the morning as the Hackpin has the ball for Team Nova Scotia. And Gunn happy to kick it down again. Will stay in the field of play. Knocked on there by Mosini Flynn. There's a injury once again, putting a halt to play. Not able to get a number right now, but we will get one as soon as we possibly can on the injured Alberta player. This time, good chance to thank some corporate sponsors for this event. Victoria Okiki. She seems to be okay, so she'll stay in with the rest of this one. So scrubbing to come here. As we're back underway. A clock a factor here for Alberta. Renshaw. Brought down just shy of the 10. Childs. Hard tackle. She hits the ground here.
Yeah, Ailish having a fantastic game, but it is sort of expected. Ailish, one of the stalwart players of the last 7 or 8 years here in Nova Scotia. Just makes a lot of right decisions and right moves, safe under a high ball, makes all her tackles.
And into touch. Once again for Nova Scotia. Like the pace here from Nova Scotia. Know that their
Just
time definitely on their side.
Yeah. Just looking to close things out.
Chichetto. Probably Jackson, pardon me. Sorry about that one. And Dodge. Swing out.
Prime has made plenty of strong carries this game.
Mandy Wells. Chichetto thought she had some real estate momentarily. Big open field tackle there by Alberta is pushing Nova Scotia back. So we're into less than 3 to go. Jackson looking for it. Ball back on the ground quickly. Nova Scotia trying to get some stiff arms to push up the field. Quick handoff outside, Childs. Childs brought down by Kovchuk. Kenzie Chichetto. See if Nova Scotia taps and goes here.
They've given the ball to Sarah Gunn, which would indicate they're likely going to the corner. Take a little bit of time for that, a little bit of time for the line out. They can.
Does it have it?
Yep, looks like it's out.
Yep.
Just about as perfect as it could be. Yep. Assistant referee Justin's just on the 5-meter mark, which is as close as you can have that play. So. Rataj Abdullah stepping in there for Michael Paris.
Nova Scotia just moments away from going day one at a 1-0 mark.
They'll look to keep it in this maul as long as they can. Drive forward.
The ball's loose. Bouncing. Picked up by Alberta, but the whistle stops play. So we're under a minute and change. We may have a little bit of injury time to be added on. Start the game in rain and it ended in sunshine. As you said, Nova Scotia weather.
Yeah. Nova Scotia will chase this scrum pretty hard, but Alberta gets the ball out quick.
BA. Shea stopped. Swing over here, Hofstad. Showing no effects of that hard hit she took earlier in the game here for Alberta. Bugle sack. Ionides. So we're now into extra time here. Alberta has a little bit of a long way to go. And they'll just tap and go with it. And up the middle. Along this near sideline they go. Bugle sack. Looking for some support. Back in the middle. Nothing going that side, so they're going to reverse sides and bring it here to this near sideline. But tough going there is Camo, who's had a pretty good game for Team Nova Scotia, doing well. Stuff soaked that one there for Alberta.
Nova Scotia just looking for a big play to get the ball back. A driving tackle where you could win a turnover, or if they can get their hands back on the ball,
Yeah.
it'll be over, but it may be over anyway.
There it is, the three blows of the whistle here from Laura Flatterer as Nova Scotia comes away with a 15-5 victory over a very determined Alberta team. But
Yeah, I think
for Nova Scotia, you got to be happy with the way it was a technically solid game, you would have to say.
Yeah, and I think happy. Look, I mean, players maybe don't look at things at that level, but happy that they get another quality game, to another game against quality opposition. You don't want a team to travel all that way and either beat them by a lot or lose to them by a lot. You want to find good, interesting competition that helps raise the standard all over. So a nice 15-5 game with some strong hits and carries by both sides. I think that's a great day for senior women's rugby.
All right, so we've still got more to come here from Windsor, and when we return, we're going to have Britton Camo, and we'll get her thoughts on this contest. So you've been watching the 2025 U19 Senior Atlantic Rugby Championships here on Maritime Athletic Profiles. We'll be back in just a couple of seconds with Britton. how the team played here today?
Yeah, I thought it was super good, super fun. Just here to play, our first together. I thought we definitely figured out some work-ons, but ultimately, came up with a win and hit the goals that we were looking for.
Started off sunny, then the lightning, and then the rain. So, how much of it was an adjustment? And what was, how did you keep the attitude, the confidence, and everything like that during the weather delay?
Yeah, we just went inside to our team room, had a little bit of a chat of what was happening in the first couple minutes, had a snack, and then just regrouped, refocused, and came out with goals in mind that we needed to work on from the first 10 minutes.
So, with that weather was ball handling. So, how did you feel it was going for you handling the ball off the slick turf and everything?
Yeah, definitely really slippery. Just tightening up our passes and being clear on who's receiving the ball. It definitely got away from us a couple times, but yeah, just an adjustment. We're used to playing in this weather, so not that big of a deal, I think.
Yeah. Start off 1-0. So, what do we expect here from this very veteran senior team here at the championships?
Yeah, definitely expecting the win, and to put points on the board, show what Nova Scotia rugby's about, and that we can play anywhere we want.
All right. Well, congratulations on the win, and best luck the rest of the way. Victory 5. So for the entire crew. I just get so long.